Welcome back, YouTube. This is Uncle Soul. Today, we're gonna jump on the hype, this hype for the Achilles tear that's been happening around the NBA. There's a lot of fear-mongering and misinformation among hoopers. So I just want to clear up what I can clear up, mainly for the uncles like us and not really for the NBA players because I'm not an NBA player. So disclaimer, I'm not a medical doctor. If you want to see a medical view of the situation, there's a lot of channels that does that already, like Zach and whatnot. So I encourage you to go over there. This is a view of an uncle hooper who really likes shoes and been hooping for many years. So I just wanted to get my take on it. Before I get started, please like and subscribe to the channel. That'll help me a lot. It'll tell YouTube that I'm doing the right thing and more of my videos are going to show up. I'm just going to make a very short section for the NBA side of things. Again, if you want to see a detailed breakdown of my take, definitely hit the like and subscribe button. If this video hits 100 likes, I'll do another video on just the NBA side where I'll break down in a little more details how I view about basketball shoes and basketball training regime and how that affects today's NBA players. There's a few NBA players, including Nick Van Axel, which I really respect when he was a player, but this take's got me fuming. He say that low top basketball shoes like these or this is the reason why Achilles tears are happening, because this is not protecting your ankles. That's a load of bullshit. And I don't need to be a medical doctor to tell you that, because I'm a finance guy, I'm a data guy. Ever since Kobe came out with his Kobe 4s and subsequent to that, basketball shoes have been trending towards a low top. It's more flexible, it's more agile, it's hipper. That's been going on for the last, 15, 20 years? If low top basketball shoes are the reason why Achilles tears are happening, then this epidemic would have started years ago. It would start 10, 20 years ago. And it would have been way worse back then because medical and training technology today is way better than back then. But it didn't. Notice, Achilles tear has been really on the rise in the last 2 to 5 years. So low top basketball shoes being a main reason why basketball players are tearing their Achilles, that's just garbage. So let's throw that out there. So, uncle, if that's a bunch of baloney, then what do you think it's the reason why NBA players are tearing Achilles? So my answer is not really that sexy. It's the simple fact of overstressing one of your weakest muscle in the entire human body. When I say weakest, I don't mean it is actually the weakest. What I meant is it is under the most stress for what it's built for. I'm not going to get into the medical side of things, but what I think is that today's NBA game is faster paced. We're scoring 140 somewhat points in regulation. So that's a very fast paced game. People are chucking up a lot of shots, missing a lot of shots, like Boston. What they are doing is they're running up and down the court a lot. So your calf muscles are your brakes. As best said it by KG recently.
If anybody knows the body, your calves are your brakes. Your calves are your brakes. And the one thing that supports the calves is your Achilles. So if your calf is the first thing to shut down, you have to think about how things are built, right? I watched all of the tapes of Cole, Tatum, and Hallie. When you watch how all three of them poured their shit, they poured it the same way. Pump fake, and you used to pump fake like this. I used to pump fake with my whole body, meaning that I would show you the ball. Paul, Cole, Tracy, when they would give you something because they was wings, they can give you a pump fake from here. It didn't even have to be a dramatic, but they were so prolific at the shot that you had to honor it. So when P gave you this, he already knew that you was up, so he would be already in there. If you're not one stretch, and again, I heard this the other day. Some of the trainers were talking about the lack of calf raises for some of the players to end their workout. Bro, we used to end a workout, especially on a leg day, calf raises. This is how I'm speeding up, this is how I'm stopping, this is my whole wiggle. If your calves ain't here. And on top of, whenever I go to finish, I gotta be athletic enough to finish, right?
In that clip, it shows you that NBA players may not be training that side of, may not be focusing on that side of muscle as much anymore in their training regime. But at the same time, their stress level have gone up because games are much faster paced. 7 seconds less, 5 seconds less offense happens all the time. So now you have a more stressed Achilles heel because you're using it more, you're training less. So what's next? Abusive use of the new negative step and Euro step. So Euro step really came in when the Europeans started coming in and doing as much as they can with the limited amount of 2-step, 3-step, whatever you want to put it, in post dribble. So at the same time, NBA players are getting more athletic and defenses are getting better on a one-on-one situation. So what happens is, for an offensive player to open up without going SGA level of hand slapping, you need to create space. That's where the negative step came into. That's why some of the newer basketball shoes are designed with negative step in mind, and they do such a good job with the beautiful transition from heel to toe on negative steps and lateral steps. The problem with negative steps and big Euro steps is that it is an incredible amount of stress on your calves in both the deceleration and the push-off. And on top of that, players are taught to be more on their forefoot nowadays because it is much quicker, lighter, and agile. This has compounded the problem for negative steps because not only is negative step already stressful on the calves, when you put it on the forefoot, it creates an even larger angle for your negative step, which increases the agility and push-off power. However, it also substantially increases the stress, as you can see in my demonstration. Tyrese and Kevin Durant's case, the calf muscle is already strained, but now you try to put even more stress on top of a already stressful and damaged calf muscle. It was only a matter of time until that happened. Versus some of the other players like Tatum and Dame, you can see in their injury, it is a lot of times on a push-off negative step that they are so used to, but that is one last step that breaks the camel's back. That's all I'll say about the NBA, because this channel is really for uncles and nephews. But again, if you want to see more of my take, remember to hit that like button on this video. For us uncles and nephews who are not as athletic as your peak athlete, is this a problem? Will this be a problem? So number one, our games are not as intense as the NBA games. We're also not practicing and training as much as they do unless you're trying to make the league. And a lot of us are not even playing that many games. I myself play only 2 games a week, and I don't do any extra practice except maybe going to the gym once a week. So the stress level of my calves on a normal week is not really at the same level as a peak athlete. And if my calf isn't overstressed, even if I do negative step, and even if I do it on a forefoot, it probably doesn't introduce as much stress as an NBA player. And I would say that's probably true for a lot of nephews and uncles who are just doing that, who are just hooping because they want to hoop, or who are hooping because they need the cardio. For the ones that are training religiously and putting a lot of stress on their body, it's something to keep in mind for sure. But as long as you monitor your situation on your calves and you're not playing through the pain, you shouldn't have many problems. Because our negative steps aren't really putting 200 pounds of pure muscle on one leg trying to push off, or stopping 200 pounds of muscle plus momentum on one foot off a Euro step. So if you really put that into perspective, yeah, I'm putting close to that in terms of weight onto one leg when I'm doing a Euro or when I'm decelerating. But how often am I doing that in a week? This is a shoe channel. Of course the question is, does basketball shoe actually contribute to the injury or prevents the injury? Obviously we're here to explore that, so that's the exciting part of this video. Recently, Zach did a whole bunch of videos talking about basketball shoes and Achilles tear, and in his conclusion, he said that, basketball shoe does have a factor. Sometimes the traction, sometimes the inherent safety feature of the shoe, but overall it is only a minor portion of a NBA's game that would contribute to a potential tear. And I would agree with that, mostly for the NBA side of things, because NBA players are already peak athletes. I've always said that Even the most perfect basketball shoe will only help you get to your max and maintain your max. It will never push you through your max. And I still believe in that for us common folks. For peak athlete, they're already near their max most of the time because they're trained to do that. For the average NBA player, a basketball shoe probably can't stress them at all because they're already at that level. So other features like the traction or over traction would potentially give them more risk, and that I can see. So for the NBA player, I probably agree with Zach, although I have a different take on it. Again, if you want to see that, I encourage you to like this video. For us uncles and nephews, however, I think the basketball shoe plays a much bigger factor in potentially causing this injury. I will say why I think it's different than the NBA game. If anyone has watched my Liren 5 review or my BioSpeed BB review, which is up here somewhere, you will know I have said this before. I don't play in this shoe often. And people who play with me will also see that although I wear a lot of shoes, this being one of my favorite, you don't see me often on the court with these. And there's a good reason, because every time I lace them up, I feel absolutely amazing playing the game, but the day after, there is a significant amount of straining and sometimes even pain on my Achilles and on my lower calf. And that's why I stopped playing in them. After one game, I'll let it rest, reset, and do it again. And that is where I think there is a difference between NBA players and us average hoopers. The reason why the Liren 5 is absolutely amazing is because it helps me achieve my max easier. But my max puts a lot of stress on my body. It almost feels like, I'm trying to emulate what a trained athlete is supposed to feel with basketball shoes. And I can say basketball shoes that I like the Liren 5, are able to get me to that level, but at a cost of my calf muscle being overstressed. So the pad on these shoes is the reason why I feel like the average hooper would be at more risk when they don't watch out for that. If you don't monitor your situation, you're going to fall down the same trap as an NBA player. You overstress your muscle, and eventually that one extra negative step while wearing these shoes or any other shoes is going to put you over the hump, and that's where that tear happens. Some shoe like the Wild 10 has an incredibly strong rebound. That also induces stress onto the user as they're trying to fight the rebound sometimes when they don't need that energy. The easy way to tell if that's happening is, again, next day you wake up, do you feel that your Achilles and your calf feel strained, it feels tight? That's a very surefire sign to tell you that these shoes are stressing you out. For uncles like me, I love using pad, but I'm also very careful when I'm using shoes with a lot of aggressive pad because I don't need to overstress my muscle. I am 40. If I do continuously do that to myself, eventually I'm going to experience the same kind of major injury. If you're a nephew or an athletic uncle that really never feels stressed on their calves and whatnot, you can certainly use these more often, but I would encourage you to really monitor it, because in our basketball, in our hooper culture, oftentimes we say, hey, just play through the pain, just play through the stress, play through the tiredness, right? It's a great mentality. I do so as well, but after the game is when you need to evaluate, was that too much? Because what are we trying to do here? We're trying to play a game where we're giving our 100%, but at the end of the day, it's a pickup game, or maybe even if it's a men's league game, what are you winning at the end? It's pride and whatnot. And the most important part, and I'm going to quote my nerdy culture as well, is a dead damage dealer deals no damage. What that means is that if you're sitting on the sideline because of an Achilles tear or because of an ACL tear, you're not scoring buckets, you're not defending nobody, you're not breaking no ankles, you're doing nothing. So that one day, that one extra negative step you took that tore your Achilles, put you on the sidelines, or you actually set your team or yourself back because now you're out a whole year, with a major injury. So keep that in mind when that mentality sets in, is that in the game, in the moment, maybe you do that, but after the game, when you're feeling that pain still, you really gotta evaluate, is that really worth it? The best way to prevent this injury, obviously, is to actually train your muscles. So whenever I'm in the gym, oftentimes I do strengthening exercise on my lower calf, because that's usually what my highest stress is. As a change of pace player like myself, the calf muscle is often very heavily used in deceleration, in change of direction, in jumping and whatnot. So it's always the worst part of my body after a game. So that's why I always do strengthening exercise on my lower body and my lower calf, because that's where I usually use it. If you are not the type of player, if you're not the same type of player as me, I still would encourage you to train that body, because according to Kevin Garnett, that kind of training regime has kind of disappeared from a professional athlete, and that's probably one of the reasons why it's causing this injury. And if you want to prevent that, you probably want to just, spend half an hour even just to put yourself into a mindset of, I'm doing these boring calf related exercise because I don't want to end up on the sidelines. That's something to keep in mind for nephews and uncles. This is my 2 cents on the current situation in the NBA for Achilles tear and how it affects us uncles and nephew hoopers. For your hoopers out there, remember the stretch, because that's the best way to prevent this injury. And seriously, this time, remember the stretch.